Hey everyone, Joshua Hanlon here, and today I'm back with Rich, or Intense Bricks, with his massive Lego castle medieval layout. So we've covered this a couple times in the past, but he continues to add amazing new sections to it here. So there's a whole section behind the mountain that we're going to show you in just a little bit that's in a separate area. But before that, for those of you who are new to this layout and haven't seen how incredible this is, why don't you start with an overview? You can start with this castle section here and just kind of take us through what you've got.
Cool. Yeah, so this is the main Lions Castle. I started this just about 5 years ago, right after COVID started. The main Lion Knights keep. They were always one of my favorite factions growing up, so I wanted to start with them. I always had the most soldiers for them, so started with them with a nice, clean layout. They were just the normal people with the peasants, and I've always liked, and I've told you guys this before, I love townspeople. I love the medieval life, so I just wanted normal life in here. So there's lots of crammed buildings, the church. The river, the port on the other side is another favorite thing of mine. But yeah, it's just a lot of life in the medieval times. I wanted to build the Coliseum. That came a little bit later, a couple years later. And then the build, kind of moves out into the mountains, and I kind of wanted to create that artificial buffer between this and other kingdoms, and that's where the new portion that you guys will show will be. It'll be on the backside. It's a new Dwarven mountain, which are kind of allied with the Lions, so not too far. And then last year I put together the Fright Knights castle, which is meant to be a little further away. That's why it's kind of not in the block, but it would be, if I had the space, it would be back there somewhere. So that's just sitting out in its own little remote island for the time being. But yeah, lots of life. I love the tight buildings. I love to have, the port and the commerce and everything going on. So that was always important to me.
Yeah, I love that, and it just makes it so much more fun to look at when you can pick out specific minifigures, and you've got the soldiers on the walls, so no matter where you look, there's something to appreciate. Another thing you've done since our last visit, I know, is really bulk up some of your army buildings. So what have you collected over here?
Yeah, so pretty much everything across the board. I've kind of refined some armies from last time. I've cleaned up their looks. I've kind of separated out the Dragon Masters as I've kind of looked to see what I want to do next. The D&D series was a great series. I grabbed a lot of those paladins. I think there's about 75 of them there now. I'm getting them ready for, that'll be my next big build. It'll be a castle for them, probably sand blue, and then, fighting probably the red dragons. So just a lot of bulk up armies. You'll see the other Dragon Knights down below. The green ones are really bulked up. But across the board, I really tried to kind of infill my armies over the last year, and kind of this wall is kind of shows that with all the new armies that are here.
Yeah. Super cool. Love to see large army building along with the whole layout. So now we'll go take a look at this brand new section that you've built since our last visit. So we've moved to the garage now, which is where the newest part of this build is on display because it was actually just recently at Atlanta BrickCon, and so hasn't quite gotten back in with the full display. But this is actually pretty cool because you get to see behind the scenes of how a really huge build like this is transported and moved to a Lego convention. So tell us about this crate that you've built here and kind of your approach to moving a build like this.
Yeah, so I wanted, it's funny because when I brought it to the show, a lot of people were, why didn't you make it more modular so you can, take it apart in pieces? Well, it is, you've seen the room. It is modular from the whole room. So yeah, I wanted this in one piece. I remember last year with the Fright Knights, I had the different towers that can come off, and they kind of banged into each other and little details fell off. So I wanted to, as much as possible, just keep this thing in one shot in the crate. And this thing's, just about 45 inches tall, and it's about 3 by 4 feet. So I wanted to build a custom crate for this thing. It's pretty stout, but yeah, it was down to the last minute. But put the crate itself together in about 3 hours or so. And I probably should have given myself a little bit more gap on the side, but as you can see, it's right down to about the 16th of an inch. It's real tight. So so it fits in there pretty well. It traveled really well. There was one tower that moved, hit a little bit, but like I said, they're modular, so they kind of moved in one shot. And I just got to pick it up and put it back. A little high on the top here, so I had to take off a little bit of the mountain at the top, but it goes back together pretty quick. But it's about 350 pounds in total. It took 4 of us to move it. 3 other very close friends in the area, so I really appreciated them helping me move it down the stairs. That was not fun. We got it out on the landing, put it on a table, or put it on the ground, and then got it into the crate. I wanted to get it in the crate before coming downstairs in case it tilted, moved, or anything like that. So it was pretty secure. But it took about 30 minutes to get down the stairs, step by step. And the guys did great. We got it out into the crate, into my pickup truck, and out to the show with minimal damage. There was hardly anything, just a couple little pieces falling off, as you'd expect.
That's awesome. So when you move it, is it just like we see it here? Or is there additional cushioning inside there or anything?
No, no other cushioning. I just have the two ends that there's one that I just kind of lasso in, and then the other side is screwed in. But to get it back out, you've got to take off the other side so you can get some muscle on it to push it out, because it is a beast.
Very cool. Well, now we'll actually pull it out of the crate, and then we can take a closer look at all the details. We've got it out of the crate and in its full glory now, and this is just such an incredible display, a really unique castle display for LEGO. So take us through kind of your overall approach to this castle and this section of your layout.
Yeah, so it's loosely based on it, as you could probably tell from the Lonely Mountain, from Erebor, from Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit. Just from color scheme, I wanted to use the sand green based on that. I knew I wanted it embedded in the mountain, and in my head, I don't draw these things out ahead of time. So I wanted my mountains, as they float off from the build that we just saw, to kind of come in here and kind of cram that front entrance into it. So it's a little different than what was originally in my head, but I think it works out pretty well. I wanted, at the end of the day, for this to look more than a fortress, more of a kingdom, more where the dwarves live. And so I wanted a lot of little towers here and there. I wanted to be able to see, I love when you look at some of the angles, you see a lot of the towers in the background. And I really wanted to build up into the mountain. And then at the end of the day, have the forge coming out and kind of it's melting the snow as the big fires come from the bottom. And there's a lot of detail that unfortunately most people, or no one except myself and maybe my wife or friends that came over at the time, will ever see the details that were down below. Well, I guess you could see them if you look on Instagram. I was tracking the progress of this and posting on Instagram for pretty much the last 11 months since right after last Atlanta BrickCon, and kind of just comes out of the bottom. And there's all kinds of details with stairs down there, and the cart paths all, the mine carts all go through. So it was really important to have that kind of real lived-in idea down there. So yeah, it was important for that to be realistic that way.
Yeah, I love the depth, both going back into the mountain with kind of the multiple levels of walls and towers, and also going down with the mine carts and the dwarves even down there in the bottom. So it really just, like you said, especially if you can get that downward view on it, it creates so much to look at there.
Oh yeah, it was a vantage point that they didn't have, that anyone who came to the show didn't get to really see down in there unless there was a child hung over their parents' head or over their shoulders or something. Yeah, to really be able to see, there's some loading docks in there from jewels being loaded up on where the carts would swing through. So there's a lot of detail down in there, that you wouldn't see otherwise.
So you mentioned you don't really draw this out or anything. So in terms of the castle itself here, where did you start building from? And then how did that kind of process naturally evolve to where it came to today?
Yeah, so for me, it always starts with the nature, the topography.
Okay.
So it fed off the mountain. I had to have that, this marries up against the other one just right. And those mountains are continuing their move, that way at an angle. And so really, I built the entire mountain, the base levels, up until about the snow peaks first. Because I wanted the castle to look like it came out of the mountain, not the mountain coming out of the castle, vice versa. So I wanted that to really grow out of the natural topography of it. So really the mountains came first, this side here, and then I worked my way down. But you know how it is, as you're building, you got to kind of work two sides at one time. So I'm like building up from here, and then I'm coming down from one side at the same time, just so everything can mesh within, the space that I have available.
And you mentioned, of course, sand green, which you can see here right off the bat, a very unique color. So were there any challenges in terms of, are there not certain pieces made in that color, or just even getting the quantities of the pieces you need here?
Yeah, so the parts that are available, they're pretty plentiful, except for maybe the 1x1 round, bricks. Other than that, they're all pretty much readily available. It's just there's not a whole lot of arches. Like you don't have 1x4 arches, and there's certain elements that just aren't produced in sand green, unfortunately. So I kind of made do with what I had. And I did in the design, I wanted to be more angular. So it kind of helped out not having the 1x4 arches, because I got to square up a little bit with the 1x2 slopes instead, and in a lot of window areas, just to kind of give it a little bit more of that, the jagged, the more rigid look for the doors.
And then you offset that with this gold, which is just such a striking combo here to cap it with that. So what are some of your favorite gold elements in here, and how did you incorporate that into the build?
Yeah, I for sure. Right off the bat, I knew I wanted those to be gold toppers. I wanted the dwarves to kind of show off their riches to a degree. I loved, I was originally going to do a golden tower, a tower that was all gold, but you're really limited with bricks in gold. And I just didn't want it to be a 2x2 brick, monstrosity. So that tower that you're looking at right now, that's pretty much the closest I got to. And I had a lot of fun adding the details. There's a lot of new parts packs available from Monkey Kid and Ninjago that you can really, get in there and play with some of the details. So, I like some of the details in this tower, the way it slips in. Yeah, so I had a lot of fun with those. Got to play a little bit more than, it's a lot different than the Fright Knights build, which was dark and gloomy, more gothic. This was, kind of wealthy and, golden. And against the sand green, I think it contrasted pretty well.
Do you sort of plan that out in your mind on purpose? Because you obviously spend a lot of time on each big section of this layout. So do you kind of alternate, I don't want to do all one type of building?
Yeah, Joshua, you're dead on. Yeah, I get sick of a color after a while, and it's why I went dark gray after doing the light gray with the Lion Knights, and then after that dark gray and playing with grays, for the last couple of years, I wanted to go into sand green, which is the reason why probably my next build will go sand blue or something completely different again. Because yeah, you get tired of building with the same colors over and over again. So yeah, the next one will be different as well.
One thing that catches your eye is not only the mountain and the castle, but you've got all these smaller scenes around it. So take us through a few of those if you can, maybe point out some of the Easter eggs or some of what you've kind of hidden in there.
Yeah, so there's a couple reasons I did it. One, so my hands can get in there a little bit, so for the track if I needed to grab a cart, so if in case it got stuck. But the other reason really to show off like what's in there, and there's a lot of inverted slopes in there, so I didn't try to fake it too much. I really want it to be like a real cave down in there, so when you look in some of these areas, especially the lower one, it really goes back far in there, and I wanted a lot of jewels to be in there. They're grabbing their diamonds, the different various emeralds and the gold coming out of there. So, and I wanted to put some life in there. The guys are hacking away at the mountain and trying to get them out. So that was a lot of fun. But yeah, it's never fun when you come in with a lot of inverted slopes and then eventually you have to cap it off with one shot. And I like to put those big, the 8x16 gray, the bricks down to, but there's always one or two slopes that want to do something different than the rest of them. So you might want to throw something every once in a while to get it all in, but it finally gets all together and it helps, secure pretty well, makes it pretty sturdy.
Coming around to the other side here, you got kind of a steep drop off in the entryway. So this part gets like super detailed and just really nicely decorated.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted their entrance to be really, flamboyant and grand. Yeah, really a grand entrance. I wanted a big staircase. There's a couple of pieces missing off the edge there. They're probably in the crate somewhere. But yeah, I wanted that entrance to be grand. The staircase going up, the big doors for them. A lot of gold I wanted there. And again, there was a lot of pieces that were available from the Monkey Kid packs and stuff I got to finally play with, because you collect these things over the last months or years, and you finally get to put them to good use. And I wanted that angle again. I've told you guys before I like to get off that grid a bit, and so it was important to me to get that entrance to be at a different angle, to get some different angles back here, some different ones back in the back towers. So that was a lot of fun to do.
Yeah, just something even simple like this small tower here being at an angle just immediately kind of pulls you in and just makes it much more sort of visually appealing.
Agreed. Yeah, it's just fun. And like you said, that's an easy one to just pop in there. It helps, your eyes look at something a little different rather than just being on that, that grid that Lego lends itself to.
Now, another cool thing about having this section out on its own is if we walk around to the other side, you get this peek behind the scenes of how you build up these mountains. And this is a question that I know we get with our videos and a lot of builders get at shows, is when you've got these really big elevations, how are you achieving that with Lego? So obviously it's very colorful back here. Talk about your process and approach with this.
Yeah, this was fun. And this was a fun thing to show at the show too, because a lot of people do, like you said, have questions about, hey, how do you get up? How do you build this up? Is that solid? Probably about a third of this is solid, maybe a little bit more than that is solid, especially up front and along the sides. But yeah, to get up quickly and I guess for more cost-effective means, using Duplo is fantastic as long as you connect it in with bricks real tight. And you can see I've always used a good skeleton, a good structural system, crisscrossing, 4x bricks or 8x or 12x with them, and then create some larger foundations on top as you get up. It helps you jump up, and it helps me when I'm building to kind of picture what that mountain's going to look like as it steps up. So yeah, it helps a lot.
Yeah, and this is a great thing. I think a lot of people probably have Duplo from when their kids maybe were young. So if you're starting to build more custom builds and mocks now, then you might have some of that old Duplo sitting around, and this is a great way to make use of that.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, you tell people to keep their Duplo. I mean, I keep selling it real cheap, please, everyone, because I can never get enough Duplo. I mean, I never thought I'd ever say that in my life, but yeah, I mean, to build up this, I've got a lot more mountains I want to build in my kingdom, so yeah. That's really important. But yeah, jokes aside, yeah, keep your Duplo. It's really important. Even if you're just going up a little bit, you've saved yourself a whole lot of bricks that are useful for other things. And then you can start getting into 2x bricks as you start getting a little closer to where you think you want to build. But it helps, jump you up down below.
When you look at these transitions in the mountains between the gray and then the white for the snow, does that really affect the mountain building at all in terms of when you're transitioning to colors and the parts that are available, or how do you kind of think about that?
You hit it dead on. Yeah, so it did dictate a lot because it all starts with my builds that are further back where you're standing, as we saw in the room. My snow start is at a certain point. And as I came over to this, I had put down an olive green slope to kind of show where that stops, because I want the green to stop at some point. And there's a little gap of sorts, and then the white starts, and the white starts in a trickle, and then the white starts in a solid. And I have those lines built up in slopes to keep myself honest in the build. But to your point, yeah, it does dictate where the castle, because I didn't want the whole castle up into the snowy part of the mountain, and it was important to me where there was going to be snow on some things, but some things don't have snow because they've got the torches, and so they are melting.
Yeah.
The forges here melting a little bit of that. So where I thought it may have been heated, I didn't put this to the snow necessarily, but some isolated towers are out by themselves. Maybe they're not staffed or manned all the time. Maybe they get a little bit more snow.
And you've got tons of fantastic Dwarven minifigures throughout here. Obviously, you want it to be all populated. Do those all use official Lego elements? Do you have any like third-party weapons or anything like that in there? What's your approach with the minifigures?
So for these are all official Lego weapons in this one. It's not, I have third-party stuff. I just didn't use it on this one. I've used a lot of K-Town in the past. In fact, I'd bought a whole lot of K-Town, smaller axes and whatnot. I just didn't happen to use them on this one. But yeah, they're all official Lego in this. I wanted to have this, again, well lived in. Down in below in the mines, you'll see more of the civilian population mining away. But as you get out into the castle and out into the areas here, into the forests, you'll see a lot more of the army moving out. And this band right here maybe is moving out to, maybe they caught, there's a dragon out there somewhere, so they're out to go hunt it down or go see what's out there. So yeah, it's fun storytelling with the figures, right? That you can build a nice structure, the nice landscaping, but I think the figures and those extra details kind of really give it what it needs.
Yeah, especially with the Dwarven minifigures, you get like the beards and some of those maybe more unique elements.
Those hobbits, yeah, for sure.
Do you have one or two favorite kind of detail pieces on the minifigures that you were able to include in there, or something that you kind of feel like kind of completes the look sort of what you were looking for here?
Yeah, some of the dwarves I want to be a little crazier looking, using Storm's hair here, or using some of the beards from, I don't know, Pirates of the Caribbean or wherever. Some of those crazy hairs and haircuts. It was fun to do with that, which I wouldn't be able to do with, with my Lion Knights or something,
right.
Or it wouldn't be appropriate for Fright Knights, in this fictitious world. So I was able to have a little more fun with those.
So before we go back to take a look at the larger layout in more depth, what are the plans with this section, or what you hope to maybe add on to this in the future?
Yeah, so this corner right here is my planned end of the map. So this has always been that far edge that lines up with the far side of Lion Knight's castle. So that's that map cut there. And this is the end of this map here. If I move into the basement here soon, I think there is some more room to go this way, so I think I can play with this. This is a cutaway of this mountain, so their kingdom does continue this way, so this is within the confines. So I can have a little bit more fun out here with them. But the next plan, other than the next build for Atlanta BrickCon, but is to move this way to kind of continue this mountain as it comes back this way, and then have another faction back here a little bit. Probably another mountain blocking it, and just to give that artificial space. But yeah, that's the next plan.
Amazing, yeah. I just love to see how this unfolds year after year. So
thank you.
Excellent work here. I'm so glad you were able to get this out the door into a show.
Yeah.
I know it's not easy, but it's really cool and inspiring to see that at a show. What was the public reaction like as you were spending time around the build and talking to people?
Oh, they were fantastic. I love listening to the children, right? They come up with stuff that you never even thought of, and that's probably my favorite thing to hear. But yeah, the reactions were great. People were very positive with it. They had a lot of fun. They come around the corner, they see the backside, and they don't think much of it. And they come around like, oh wow, look at that. It's just this, up on a table. I can only imagine it's like a 7-8-year-old. It's very imposing,
yes.
Right? Looking up at this big mountain and this big castle. So it was pretty cool.
Perfect. Well, we're going to go back in and take a closer look at the overall layout that we looked at earlier. We're back inside with the entire castle layout. We're going to start now and take a deeper dive into this incredible piece, this very dark and gloomy piece here. So tell us about your build approach with this and some of the details inside this display.
Yeah, this is a much darker build, more barren landscape, not a lot going on. There's spiders and whatnot around here. This is you don't want to be here. This is the Fright Knights mountain fortress I built last year, and I want it to be really dark. I like to use contrasting colors in my stones, but for this one I didn't. Instead went to the details, which took a lot longer to build. Each tower takes an hour or so. Some of the smaller ones.
Yeah.
The other ones take a day or two or three. So yes, just wanted a lot more detail on this, more Gothic architecture, the black roofs. I came in with that kind of mindset. I do like that stepped approach, as it, the towers kind of build their way up into the, to the made towers in the background. So I knew I wanted this to be, tall. I wanted to be, reaching. I wanted some of these towers to come flying out the sides. Again, I wanted to play with some of those angles, get off the grid again. So I had, a lot of fun with this. Some colors harkening back to the original Fright Knights, some yellows and reds in there. Just had a lot of fun with this one. It was a lot different than the peaceful Lion Knights that I had done prior to this.
Absolutely, and like you said, yeah, those towers at some unique angles, great for a fun effect. The dark red is super cool. Now, when you're building something like this and kind of working on the layout as a whole, are you bouncing around between areas, or is it, I'm going to finish this castle in this section and largely ignore the rest of it? It kind of one thing at a time. How do you approach that?
Yes. So sometimes you do get bored with some colors. I know for this, I kind of stayed focused on this, and I let my, as parts came in or figures or things, I might build that or sort. Sorting pretty much gets me off of that repetition. But for sure, when I'm building like these other things in the background, when I'm building a lot of mountain and a lot of landscape and there's nothing else going on, I will jump to to the farming area, or to, the full, different kind of foliage, or get back to building buildings, or, the Coliseum or things like that. So exactly like you said, I don't like to stay stuck in, repetition like that for a while. This was fun because each tower kind of has its own unique taste, flavor.
Yeah.
That was important to me. I didn't want them all to look the same. I wanted each one to be unique. So this was kind of fun, and that dark red definitely broke that up after a while, getting back there. And my plans are to kind of expand this going backwards. So there is, a little bit, another module I want to plop in behind to kind of bring it back down again off the backside.
Nice. Yeah, I love that there's always kind of more to each faction and each part of the build. So there's always more story to come, and you've kind of got that expansion in mind in the future.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And there's the little procession out in front. This was always going to be, they take people captive, and then they come out with a procession with them if they're not thrown off the side there like that one Lion Knight is. And there's a little poop coming out. He's pooping his pants coming out the backside. So then you got Basil flying out out the front leading his procession. So yeah, just having fun again with the figures. And that Batlord Basil the Batlord CMF was perfect timing for this, because it was right as I was completing it, and then that figure was unveiled last year. So it was really good. It was good timing to kind of get them into this layout as well.
Obviously, all of these builds you do here require large quantities of parts. Since we're on this side of the room, I wanted to ask you about this. You've got all of these pick-a-brick cups full, and then, of course, tons of sorted parts along here. So where are your main sources for parts as you're working on these builds? Where do you tend to get a lot of those from?
So I kind of do the all-the-above approach.
Okay.
So, yeah, so a lot, when LEGO releases new parts, it's pick-a-brick online, getting the standard if they're not taking 4 or 5 months to ship, as they are now, getting those new parts. Because the new elements are good, you use them for a lot of new things. But, pad walls are probably the best, most cost-effective way to get parts. The way you could fill up cups are now boxes. And then I also take a couple trips a year, go to Gunsberg, Legoland, Germany. It's a great deal there by weight. So I try to bulk up there with some friends and load up parts. So you can see, so I have my parts, and then the bricks and the specialty pieces, and then the cups are kind of the overflow of what doesn't fit in those areas. So that's all overflow parts up there. A lot of masonry, a lot of brick, basic brick that you need to kind of, get things up.
I've never made it to Legoland Germany yet, but from what I understand, it's kind of unique among the Legoland parks, right? And then it has kind of a better selection of a lot of those parts and more options.
Yeah, there's a lot of parts. I mean, it's I don't know how many different elements are in the store. Hundreds of elements within the factory store, and it's for Lego builders. It's heaven on earth. It's actual candy store for us. You walk in and you have to kind of hold back on some things because some of them are not worthwhile, right? The smaller parts by weight are definitely worth it. So foliage is really good. Smaller bricks and plates and tiles are all really good. Printed parts are really good. But as you get to the larger bricks, it's not economical to get them in that way. So you really have to hold back, because you sit there and look at a part you do want a lot of, and you just have to be like, no, you can't. Don't buy that here. Wait to get it somewhere else. So if it's on a pad wall, I'll get it there. But otherwise, it's online Pab, or it's in Gunsberg. But obviously Bricklink is a main focus. Sometimes when I have some of these builds, there's packets coming every day from Bricklink, so Bricklink's a main source of my parts as well.
Have you ever, I know Bricklink German sellers are really big on there. Have you ever thought about like meeting up with a Bricklink seller on a trip to Germany or something like that and picking up parts?
We've talked about it. And maybe we should find a German friend that we meet there and have them just keep shipping us a continuous supply, like food almost. But it's, it's definitely in mind. But no, those sellers, they get so much. And some, originally when we'd seen on Bricklink, you look and they had so many parts, like where are they getting them all from? And they're from Germany or Austria right nearby. And yeah, it's just a great source for parts over there.
Yeah.
Yep.
We'll move into this section now. And so you've got a variety of a few different things in here. We can start maybe with the Coliseum, which is one of the really unique buildings that kind of stands out. And also just kind of a more unique approach to a medieval kind of town layout here. So tell us a little bit about the design of this one.
Yeah, and so in my lore, this was an old Roman Coliseum that was left around, and they've kind of used it now for their own fighting arena. And you can see there's some battles in there between some certain factions, and the king is there and the crowd is there. Again, I love peasants, I love townspeople, so it was fun to just kind of load up the stands. And that's another thing I have a continuous supply of. And another good thing that Legoland Germany is good with, because they have the minifig shop, and so you can get torsos there, and you can get weapons and shields at really good prices. So you can kind of load up on some of these things. But yeah, that was fun to build. I wanted the little statues to go all the way around it. They kind of harken back to their famous fighters or famous people that they put up. So that was a lot of fun. That was a little different than the rest of it. I had a little accident when I was building that. I was going to transport it when it was all done, and I picked it up, and the thing just kind of caved in on itself. Had it built the next day, but it was I had to just walk away from that one because I was ready to throw something through a window. But it was fun. It's getting it into the landscape. And then the next module here, and I might do that simultaneously with the next build. This will be some more farms and some animals will be out here, but also an area here for jousting. I'll put up the tents and whatnot outside of their sports venues, so to speak. So it'll be fun. It'll be a little different out here as well. And then this will finally get into some rolling hills as we build up into some mountains that are coming back from here, and then the river will cut through as well.
Incredible. Yeah, love that. Now, we saw earlier at the beginning of the video, you showed off some of your army building over there. Are there any factions, maybe some of the classic Lego medieval factions that you have not been able to include yet, or that you'd like to even just sprinkle in maybe a few minifigs of in kind of some scene somewhere in the layout?
Yeah, John's on them right now. There's some I can't get them. I won't ever, and no matter how big of a room I have, I won't be able to get them all in. So I built some of their trade ports, some of their own embassies, so to speak, out there. I do want to do a degraded old yellow castle for that faction. Like it used to be. It was the old one, and it's kind of broken down. So I might do that off a path coming down, the main road or something. So I've got some ideas for that. But yeah, I want to get them all in here. The dragon factions will be a little further away. And again, I'm planning on moving this to the basement where I have a bit more space, and I'll be able to expand the kingdom a bit more.
We'll move into the town itself now, and this is always one of my favorite parts of kind of a castle medieval layout, is when a builder takes the time not only to do kind of the imposing sort of castle structures, but like you referenced earlier, that detail work with kind of putting the minifigs in and really making it sort of feel lived in. And that's what I think you get with these types of streets and the way you've laid this out here.
Thank you. Yeah, this is my favorite part by far of all my builds. I absolutely love this town. I love some of these views. If you get down on it, you can see the curvy roads, and it's real tight and crammed, and there's people all around doing things, mingling about, and out there will be some water, and I'll be able to build some some trade ships coming into port. And so this is just the fun part for me. I've always been a fan of the peasant figs, and what are they, besides fighting all the time, what do they do? And so this is fun with the trading, and people watching the troubadour playing. It's a lot of fun to have these little details and the regular life and the medieval life going on.
Yeah, and you've got this great church nestled in there with that stained glass effect, which I always think it looks so nice with Lego.
Yeah, and I want it to be a little more prominent, right? A little taller than the rest. It's like the church that's inside the walls. It's up on the hill, and this one's more prominent. I want it to stick out a little bit more than the rest of it, as it's a focus of their medieval life in this lore. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. I really like to cram streets and getting that detail in there.
So this blue ship, I know you mentioned you've got some of the different factions represented here. That's quite a few years old now. Do you know what the oldest medieval minifig or faction you have represented on the layout is?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, it's probably the other one, the Viking ship down there,
Okay.
a little further. I don't have, I tried to keep the actual builds out, and really these are just for, these are placeholders, so to speak. I just wanted to have kind of size things up and just see how things look. So I grabbed one from Lord of the Rings. I grabbed that Viking ship down there, and then the Sea Serpent here, just kind of scale it up a little bit, see how things fit. On the docks, so eventually those will come out, and then I'll get I'll build some custom ships, and get them in the port here. But yeah, there's not a whole lot of else or Lego in here. Obviously the medieval market I put back there, and I purposely wanted that to be the edge of the map so I can open it up. But yeah, the rest of it's custom.
Once you've got a setup like this built, are you looking at it and always thinking, oh, maybe I'll change, a roof design or a building design here or there? Is that something you sort of have to hold yourself back from doing all the time, I could imagine?
I do, yeah. So not so much on these buildings here. I mean, I do look, and there's a couple things I probably would change, and parts that are available now that I can use. But really, back on that original keep, the original castle, I look back to that, and there's a lot of me that doesn't like that based on scale. I mean, having one window, and it looks the scale is all out of whack for me. But at the end of the day, it kind of shows the progression of the build, and so that I do like, and I like the fact that, they did have older parts, and so I think I'll just keep that and just keep adding on, yeah, just so I could see my own progression. It's kind of like classic to me now, the original build. I started with that original little mountain down there, and that it all grew from that. So.
Yeah, it is very cool to see, the layout expand, and then also just your buildability and just the parts and everything you've been able to get. So everything just continues to expand.
It's funny. No matter how many parts you have, you sit there and you're like, how am I missing? You run out of a part, and it's like, this is ridiculous. And most people would say it is ridiculous because of the amount of parts I have. But it's always like that. It's always the one thing that you need that you don't have, and you have to put, there goes the custom bricklink order, to go get something.
We'll move kind of across the water into the main castle section now. And one thing that's cool here is you actually have some interior details, right, with some of these?
Yep. Yeah. So in the keep here, yeah, and there's a war room, and there's actually a miniature model, a mini scale version of the layout here of the keep, and then across to the port. And they're having their little war room chat, and you have others, nobles coming down the stairs or going into the meeting as well, and you can see them kind of walking through along the outside walls as well. So yeah, all these kind of open up, and they all have full interiors and details in them. They might not have some of the furniture in some of the towers, but they are finished. They're tiled off, and there's stairs and everything. I like my minifigures to be, if they came to lives, let's say, they could get everywhere in there.
Yeah. Is that something you do with a lot of the other buildings in the layout, or is that kind of unique to this castle in terms of the interiors?
Everything that's out here. So even the Fright Knights castle, everything has staircases.
Wow.
If it's not a ladder or something, I want them to be able to get from one floor to the other. It's probably too much detail. I probably wasted too many 2x2, brown inverted slopes to make little stairs everywhere. But it's important to me to be able to get, they're not fully furnished. I've cracked this joke before. Maybe it's like a house that's available for purchase, without any furniture in it. But they're sitting there ready to go. There's little fireplaces and everything. So every chimney that you see, there's an actual fireplace in the building related to that.
Yeah, but again, those little details, it really just make it fun for you as well. And then when people have the opportunity to really look closer and appreciate those.
Yeah, if you were to pull like one of the module roofs off, you'd see nice little planky wood in different colors. Using the nougats, the dark browns, the browns, and then you'd see the little stairs in there. It's fun for me, and it's. I've always called this my Zen room. It's you let your creative juices get going, and you create your little little niches.
You've got the big sort of banquet happening on this side with more details underneath there, armory and things going on. So there's even more kind of like inside here before you move into this section in front of the castle. So what do you kind of consider this section out here?
So this is the interior town. So this is I made the buildings a little nicer. They're inside the confines of the walled castle. So yeah, just some more shops. There's more shops over here than just some living areas on the outside. I threw little signs up, and then here on the cross section where the kind of the map cuts off, I got to throw some actual interiors with furniture and stuff inside for the life that they're having.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see the beds and things in there, so that's what you want to see, and just people going about their daily lives. I love kind of even the strings of parts above the walkways, so kind of almost like a festival feel to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the little the church or the service going out, and the preaching, and the book out in front, and everyone's kind of just listening. and then the fountain out in front. It's so much fun to just add those little details to it.
Now, I'm sure I've asked you this before, but the number one question I think we get anytime we make a video like this is about dust and keeping things clean. You've got a lot of surfaces and parts and trees and things that can be difficult to work around. So what is your approach with that? Has anything changed over the years in terms of how you kind of approach cleaning or keeping things dust-free?
Yeah, so I could see a little bit of dust now, but in the 5 years I've had this, I have not done like a full dusting of this room. I think the biggest thing for me is always just to keep that door closed.
Okay.
Because everything else from the rest of the house comes in. So change your filters and keep the door closed is the best thing you can do to kind of keep the dust away. Even my dog comes in here, so it holds up pretty well. But I think pretty soon here I got to give it a little once over. But I think I've been pretty fortunate with dust in this room. It's pretty low.
Yeah, no, very nice. It looks excellent. So we'll move outside of the walls now, which these walls and towers are also very impressive on their own, especially this sort of like central gate tower area, very imposing there as you're trying to cross the drawbridge if there was an enemy force coming in.
Yeah, there's a lot of kill slots in there, kill holes in this gatehouse. I have an armory just above, and again, this is all modular. These come off, and this was fun to make. There's gates that come down and portcullis, and that was really fun to do. And it's a pretty cool little path if you look down in there. There's people coming through through the gatehouse. Very lived in. It's very important to me.
And then we get to an area with very little life outside of the trees. Over here.
There's not even a single bird out there.
But the contrast of that, I think, makes it really cool. So one of the things that always interests me with Lego is the trees. What are your main kind of approach here with some of these designs, and is that something you're always kind of sort of tackling new ideas and trying new sort of creative approaches to the way that you can build those?
Yeah, so the number one, those upside down pine trees, I think for scale for me are very important. I like to keep it as small as possible, and I've probably said this a million times before. Like you just have a tendency to build too big. The scale can really get away from you real quick. So the smaller you can make things, the baseline, the better for me at least. And I did want this to kind of be dead out here. I've been bulking up on animals and birds and squirrels, you name it, to throw in there. But I didn't want anything to be in there, right? I didn't want another castle to be right there.
Right.
I needed to create that space and then wait till you get to the other side of the mountain. To think really it's a long distance away, which it's hard to do with castle. And I've probably said this before, where like in city, you can build the grid and you keep building, and it keeps going and going. But in castle, you kind of build those artificial, you suspend disbelief a little bit and kind of kick a little space in between. Just create a little distance between your different factions.
I think that's a good tip for building in general. There are definitely a lot of builds that we see where there's just so much going on, and it's maybe like a really high quality level of building, but because of how much is packed into such a small space, you can't really appreciate a lot of what's happening in there.
Agreed. Absolutely agree. Yep.
So then as we move beyond the mountain, so this is the section then that we saw earlier, right? So it moves up against this edge right here?
Yep, Mayor's right up against this. Yeah, this is where the Dwarvens would be sitting right here on that exposed mountain. It attaches right up here against this spot. I had contemplated bringing this section with me as well, but the time it took me to build the crate for the other one, I said, no, I'm not doing another one of those. So only the one section went to the show. So this one stayed behind here. It would have given a little more depth, a little bit more, perspective on the layout. But I think it worked out pretty well, even on its own.
Absolutely, yeah. So this whole display just continues to be more and more amazing. And as you've mentioned a number of times, you've got plans to go bigger and better and just expand the story and everything in the future. So can't wait to see that. Definitely looking forward to that. Do you have plans to display any parts of it at any other conventions this year at this point?
Yeah, I'm contemplating bringing that dwarf mountain. As much as I hate moving that thing, that thing might go to Chicago.
Okay.
There's a couple of friends of mine in the area. I think we might go together. So that might see a trip up to Chicago, but that'll probably be the only other one it goes to. But otherwise, I've got some of those other builds that as we build out here that I think I'm going to bring some future shows as well.
Very cool. And we mentioned all of your parts earlier, but you've also got just a great collection of various Lego castle and medieval sets from over the years, your army building over there. So is there anything you've picked up recently that you want to show off, or anything you're still looking for that's something that, you know, if somebody has one out in the wild that they should let you know about?
Yeah, that giant chess set seems to still elude me.
Okay.
That's my biggest. That's my white whale. I'm still looking for that set. That's my big one. I haven't really gathered any older sets, like just some newer sets and some GWPs I've stocked up on. You know, there's always that FOMO.
Right.
So I've kind of bulked up on some of those. But yeah, nothing old I've really gotten. The you know, the new 3-in-1 dragon I've picked up, and some of the newer sets. You know, the new medieval town set. But yeah, still looking for that big chess set. That one, that's my white whale right now.
Lego's really throwing you all these like tasty morsels with those GWPs, and it's like look at what we could do with these factions and with these themes. There's so much possibility here,
Yeah.
but it doesn't seem like they're ever willing to commit at this point in recent years to like a fully fleshed out theme.
Yeah, it's the classic Lego tease. Yeah, they'll put out the GWP. They'll give us that Dragon Master, you know, torso, but not, you will never see it again. But you know, hopefully we'll see it maybe in a 3-in-1 set this year. Or, I'm sure that they'll use it at some point. But yeah, they'll tease us for about a year and a half, and then maybe something else will come out.
Well, fantastic work once again, and I know you referenced earlier on about your Instagram, so if people want to follow your work as you kind of continue to expand here, where are you most active online and where can they find that?
Yeah, and I'm on Instagram, so
Okay.
Intense Bricks on Instagram. I post updates probably 3-4 times a week, whether it's on a build or new parts that come in. I always like seeing other people, what new parts are coming out. I always used to watch Jang Bricks for that.
Yeah.
You know, he'd show new elements. I'm like, oh, that's great. You know, we can use that. So yeah, because Lego doesn't advertise their new parts very well sometimes. You know, you go to some of these sites, New Elementary and stuff, you kind of see the new parts. But yeah, so I'll post, you know, the new parts that I'm getting, and you know, people are like, oh, look at that, it's available. So, you know, whether it's on bestseller or standard, I'll put that on there so people know that, you know, what's available out there to go pick up.
Perfect. Well, then we will make sure to link to your Instagram in the description of this video down below. So if you want to follow throughout the year, you know, before our next visit, if you want to keep up to date on
There's a lot more coming, yep.
Exactly. There's lots of excitement coming, so you can follow over at Intense Bricks on Instagram and keep up to date there. But thank you once again for you know, taking us through everything. I get so excited coming down here and kind of getting our yearly update, and it's amazing to see
Appreciate it.
all of your work here. So can't wait to see where it goes in the future.
Thank you.